excuse me, that was clearly carried. So it's 2209. So we can now start the next motion, 469. But we will only have 21 minutes to carry out this debate. So, Councillor Hare, do you have a seconder, please? All right, Councillor Jones. Proposer, Councillor Hare, would you like to speak for 3 minutes, please?
Thank you. Having asked the Tories to second this motion, just last Tuesday I got eventually a reply from John Horsell asking me to withdraw it, as he said the Council Equality agenda covered it all. But white ribbon accreditation will give Wokingham Borough Council the opportunity to lead the way as a positive role model for men and boys. Public sector bodies achieving white ribbon accreditation are able to demonstrate they're meeting the public sector equality duty under the Equality Act 2010. This being the case, I'm not sure why he's worried. If it's all old hat, he can skip through this quite rapidly. The truth is that often women can't get away from violence from men at work, in a controlling marriage, with family, or with total strangers. As a man, I feel reasonably safe walking the dog at night. I used to leave my wife Nicola to do that, but then I realised how selfish I was, expecting her to go out in the increasing dark. And I'm sure that all of us men have, in some way, worried, concerned, scared or manipulated women by our actions, speech, or gestures. Many of this, I know, have done this unintentionally, but ignorance is no excuse in the law. This motion seeks to help us as members to lead people, especially men and boys, in ending violence that is physical, verbal, sexual, emotional, financial and spiritual violence against women. We need to take our place in stopping this violence when we hear or see it, not to stand by and let things drift on, but being active in changing the shape of society for the better. As a council, we need to join White Ribbon and sign up to the Our Street Now campaign to rid our borough of this harassment. We need to start to address the underlying misogyny in our society that creates an environment where violence against women is normalised and accepted. Can each of us claim to be ambassadors for the protection of women who suffer different types of abuse, often every day? Are we people who confront wrong in ourselves and others, that women might feel safer doing things that we, as men, take for granted? Can we join?
Councillor Hare, Councillor Hare, you've unfortunately run out of time. Thank you. So, is there anyone in the room and in David Hicks that wishes to speak against the motion? I only need one, so we will continue. Seconder, do you wish to reserve your right or speak now?
I'll speak now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I cannot for 1 minute believe that any member of this council can vote against this motion. It is very clear to me that a change in attitude towards women is necessary. Why should a female walking down the street feel uncomfortable? Why should a female cycling to work feel uncomfortable? Why should they be the subject of whistles, of shouts, of lewd comments? It's not funny. It's not a joke. Ask any female. It's a female who gets thrown out sorry. Is it right that if you push someone away when you're in a bar or a nightclub because of inappropriate behaviour, that it's the female who gets thrown out? Is that right? Of course it isn't. When my daughters were young teenagers, if they were walking alone, we would encourage them to call us. Chatting to us made them feel safer and deterred males from harassing them. Not all parents are able to do this. 15 years on, we still do it. I'm no longer at the top of the phone list, but we shouldn't have to do this. Street harassment is an issue for women. Even in broad daylight, they are abused by men, usually young men, from the safety of their cars or their vans. Very brave boys who can escape quickly if they're challenged. This council can do something to help women. We can seek changes to the law. We must speak up for women and help schools develop strategies to prevent public sexual harassment. We have to help changes in attitudes. It's our job to do this. It's one of the reasons that we have been sent here. I hope that all councillors see the benefit of Wokingham Borough Council being a white ribbon accredited organisation. It will show we have a positive, safe organisational culture. We'll have a staff who are knowledgeable and skillful in recognising and addressing violence and abusive and sexist behaviour against women. It will raise awareness amongst staff, helping them to be positive role models. It can improve the experience of customers and stakeholders and influence wider societal change to help end violence against women. I strongly urge all councillors in this chamber and in the David Hicks room to vote for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I believe there's an amendment being proposed.
In accordance with Constitution Rule 4.2.13.7, paragraph B, line 3, that we can refer the matter to an appropriate body, in this case, the appropriate body being the Cross-Party Equalities Working Group. The handout is available. It can be circulated now.
Please note, we've only got 13 minutes left.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hare, do you need adjournment?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Hare, do you accept the amendment?
No, I do not. In show equality, this is again being kicked into long grass, and it's something that we need to do now.
Thanks.
Wait.
Point of order, why is he getting 2 speeches?
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Hare. Laura, have you got a seconder, please? Councillor Swaddle. Would the proposer of the amendment please like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with the spirit of the motion. This council is committed to doing everything it can to protect its residents from violence and harassment. And this includes educating staff and councillors on speaking out when witnessing abuse. And that's exactly what this council is doing. Our equalities team is currently designing training to support staff and councillors and being an effective ally if they're a bystander to harassment and discrimination. And this goes further than only addressing aggression towards women and girls and extends to all the 9 protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010. The Cross-Party Equalities Working Group will scrutinise the proposed training in January 2022. This is the reason for the amendment to the motion, as the Equalities Working Group will be considering training and awareness raising, similar to what White Ribbon supports. We can scrutinise it all together and see whether we need elements of what White Ribbon offers to supplement the work already being done by this council without risk of duplication. This is the proper context to discuss it. It is simply too early to decide to sign up to White Ribbon accreditation tonight. The Cross-Party Equalities Working Group is the ideal place for the proposed actions of the motion to be considered. It should also be noted that the government's Tackling Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, published in July this year, has a commitment to ensure police and prosecutors are confident in responding to public sexual harassment. And this includes plans for the College of Policing to provide new guidance for police officers on public sexual harassment and the Crown Prosecution Service to update legal guidance to add specific information on the issue. On page 70 of the strategy, it also says how the government is already exploring creating a specific offence for public sexual harassment to see how this could address gaps in existing legislation. This council is also planning to launch its new domestic violence strategy early in the new year and will be recruiting a new domestic violence specialist in its housing department. But we know we can do more, and we are committed to doing so. To avoid duplication, it's best for the asks of the White Ribbon motion to be reviewed by the Cross-Party Equalities Working Group. Then we can see how thorough the council's proposed new training is and whether there are any gaps that organisations such as White Ribbon can help us with. Indeed, there are lots of external organisations that do great work in this area. We need to ensure that we work with the right ones and spend taxpayers' money where due diligence has been done. I reiterate that I agree with the spirit that the motion is intended. It's just common sense for it to be properly scrutinised by cross-party working group, just looking at very similar allyship and bystander training and awareness raising in just 2 months' time. That's the ideal forum, and it's simply not responsible to pledge taxpayers' money for an external organisation's accreditation that may duplicate what the council's own equalities team is working on. Therefore, I'd ask that the amended motion is supported.
Thank you. We've got 9 minutes left. Does the seconder wish to speak now or reserve their right?
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, who wishes to speak? And you also, so I can see at least one person in David Hicks. There's one person on the, so we do have speakers. When we reach 10:30, that is the end of any debate. We go straight to the vote. No one has a right to reply. No one has, seconder doesn't have a right, etc., as per the Constitution. Can I call Councillor Rebecca Marget, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a significant issue which runs way beyond the boundaries of Wokingham. An Ofsted review into sexual harassment in schools and colleges in June 21 found sexual harassment has become so frequent that it has become commonplace. As an example, 92% of girls and 74% of boys stated that sexual name calling happens a lot to them directly and their peers. I am the governor responsible for safeguarding at my local primary school in Finchampstead, and I have first-hand experience of this subject. I can state that safeguarding procedures are robust within the school. Safeguarding of our children is on the agenda at every governor's meeting. Reports of any sexual harassment are now to be reported by the head teacher to all governors. 11 of our 12 secondary schools in Wokingham Borough are academies, which means they set their own policies. The Department for Education issued Keeping Children Safe in Education in September 2021. This is statutory guidance that all our schools and colleges must adhere to. A specific section is identified for peer-on-peer abuse or child-on-child. All staff should be aware that children can abuse other children. It states that all staff must understand the importance of challenging inappropriate behaviours between peers. Downplaying certain behaviours, for example, dismissing sexual harassment as just banter, just having a laugh, part of growing up, or being boys, can lead to a culture of unacceptable behaviours, an unsafe environment for children, and the worst case scenario, a culture that normalises abuse, leading to children accepting it as normal and not coming forward to report it. All staff should be clear as to the school or college's policies and procedures in regard to peer-on-peer abuse and the important role that they have to play in preventing it and responding where they believe a child may be at risk of it. The council will further engage with schools on this issue and the need for schools to accept responsibility in implementing policy and procedure to meet the statutory guidance from the Department of Education. I agree wholeheartedly with the intention of this motion, but do not feel that it goes far enough. We should look as a council at a whole as how we support all individuals who are suffering any kind of harassment. Therefore, at this time, I would ask for you to support the amendment. We should support all individuals who experience sexual harassment across the borough, but by proposing that more ambitious and thorough recommendations be brought to council to debate and vote on at a later date.
Thank you. Councillor Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm appalled and I'm frankly astonished that the Conservatives are not wholeheartedly supporting this motion unamended this evening. Male violence against women happens on a scale. What can begin with sexist jokes, so-called banter, street catcalls, harassment that many of us have sadly encountered can end with serious violence. It seems to be clear that Conservatives do not understand this or the importance of it. Have they learned nothing from the dreadful murder of Sarah Everard by a man whose behaviour began with sexist conduct but ended horrifically in murder? And the appalling response after the event, as women were advised to flag down a bus if they didn't feel safe with a male police officer. It's not a women's problem. It's not up to women to keep themselves safe. It's not up to women to change their behaviour. But so often the response to male violence is that women should change. It has to stop now. All men can help to prevent violence against women by speaking out against poor behaviour, by not tolerating it, by calling it out now. And the fact that the Conservatives are denying to support White Ribbon this evening unreservedly and refusing to support action against street harassment now is frankly insulting. It just shows how committed the Conservatives are really to the equalities agenda. To finish, I would just like to ask the Conservatives that are refusing to support this wholeheartedly this evening, basically kicking the can down the road on this. What do I tell my 12-year-old daughter about how much this Conservative council values her right to be safe, her right to feel safe, her right to be free of male harassment or worse on our streets?
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Kerr, please, you just get in.
Thank you. I echo what Rachel just said there. This is like the previous amendment, procrastination, no commitment. And in the intervening period, more women and girls are going to suffer as a result of this. Almost every woman at this meeting tonight will have survived from some form of sexual harassment or assault. For some of us, it has been multiple occasions. It is such a widespread daily occurrence that it's rare to find a woman who hasn't experienced some kind of sexual harassment or assault. We are not saying that men don't get attacked. What we're saying is that women and girls are disproportionately the victims of violence because they are women and girls. I should be able to go out in an evening and not have my drink spiked. I should be able to walk through the town and not have to hide in a shop until the stalker stops stalking me. And I should be able to go away on a business trip and not have my boss try and rape me. Those are three real things that have happened to me, by the way. Violence towards women and girls stems from the misogynistic culture that is prevalent in our society, which has been normalised. Men who kill women do not suddenly kill women. They work up to it. There is a direct correlation between the normalised objectification of women and girls and the harassment and violence we are subjected to. We too easily, as a society, brush off the catcalling, the lewd gestures, the inappropriate comments about how we look, the sexist jokes. We've normalised this and it must stop now, not once it's gone to some talking shop. I'm really pleased that the council is developing bystander and allyship training, and it is a positive step forward, but it barely scratches the surface of what needs to be done. The council has adopted an equalities plan which doesn't mention women or girls in it even once. The three priorities focus on listening to and learning from our communities, acting on our commitments, and building a diverse and engaged workforce where everyone is respected. What we're asking is that you listen and learn, act on those commitments and engage as you've promised, and set an example as Councillor Halsall said we would. Please act now on these promises. We're asking you raise awareness and lobby government to make street harassment a specific crime. You can vote for that tonight. That you work with schools to set up specific policies in education and PSHE specifically on this. You can vote for that tonight. and that this council seeks white ribbon accreditation, which goes far beyond what this council is already doing. If you genuinely care about ending violence against women and girls, voting against the amendment and for the original motion allows the local authority to be a proactive role model. As you decide which way you're going to vote, think about your female colleagues, your mothers, your wives, your sisters, your daughters, your granddaughters. Vote against this amendment for them and vote for the original motion. Thank you. And I just want to say I'm so angry at you, really angry.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. It's now 10:30, so we need to go to the vote. It is going to be a named vote again. So Susan will call out your names and we'll do the normal vote. Thank you. This is a vote on the amendment to become the substantive motion. If the amendment is passed, we will not do a second vote unless members want it.
Thank you. So this is for, against, or abstention. Sam Akhtar,
For.
Keith Baker,
Abstain.
Parry Bath,
For.
Rachel Bishop-Firth,
Against, and I think this is disgraceful.
Laura Blumenthal, Chris Bowring,
For.
Shirley Boyt,
Against.
Rachel Burgess,
Against.
Anne Chadwick, Jenny Cheng,
For.
Stephen Conway,
Against.
Phil Cunnington,
For.
Peter Dennis,
Against.
Lindsay Ferris,
Against.
Michael Thurmager,
For.
Paul Fishwick,
Against.
Jem Pruin,
Abstain.
John Halsall,
For.
David Hare,
Against.
Paul Hellier-Simons,
For.
Graham Howe,
For.
Clive Jones,
Against.
Norman Jorgensen,
For.
John Kaiser,
For.
Sarah Kerr,
Against.
Abdul Loys,
Abstention.
Tahir Maher,
Against this desperate motion.
Morag Malvern,
Against. Firmly.
Charles Magetts,
For.
Rebecca Magetts,
For.
Adrian Mather,
Against.
Andrew Mickleby,
Against.
Stuart Monroe,
For.
Gregor Murray,
For.
Barry Patman,
For.
Jackie Rance,
For.
Angus Ross,
For.
Daniel Sargent,
For.
Ian Shenton,
Against.
Imogen Shepherd-Dubey,
Against, the original motion has what we need.
Rochelle Shepherd-Dubey,
Against, the original motion has what we need.
Caroline Smith,
Against.
Chris Smith,
I wholeheartedly support Councillor Laura Blumenthal's amendment to this motion.
Wayne Smith,
For.
Bill Soane,
For.
Alison Swaddle,
For.
the amendment is agreed.
Thank you for that. We're now past the 22:30, 10:30. I'm assuming that council is okay about not having another vote. I'm not seeing anybody who's actually indicating they want that. So thank you for that, Councillor Jones.
The amended motion has not been approved. All
Yeah.
you've done is approve the amendment.
The amendment has now become the substantive motion.
Yep.
And we can go through, as I understand it, we can go through and immediately do another recorded vote. I'm not sure what we would achieve on that, but if that's what council wants to do, I don't think it will change, but I don't know. Councillor McGee, that's it, yeah.
I think on reflection, we won't go for another vote because all of the sheep over there. are all-
Councillor Jones,
are all going
please,
to
please,
vote
can you
the
keep
way-
it civil?
Yes,
I understand your
apologise.
anger, but please keep it civil.
I apologise, Mr Mayor. I
you.
shouldn't call them sheep.
I'm not in the chamber. Thank you. And finally, before I close the meeting, there was something tonight, and I understand the anger that people feel about this particular motion. But please, when you are voting, please no further comment than either for, against, or abstain. It is actually not very polite to do that. And all it does is encourage others to start doing cross comment. So please, for the next meeting and onwards, do not make any other comment. Thank you. I declare the meeting now closed at 10:35.